Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining our Community Youth Employment Program webinar. And today, just a couple of housekeeping items. You can listen to the audio through your computer speakers if you would like. If you choose to call in, that is fine, but at the moment we have everyone muted. That helps with keeping down the background noise. If you haven't already done so, please check in so that we know that someone from your location attended this webinar. Also, in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see where it says Files, November 15th, 2017. That includes the PowerPoint that we're going to look at today, as well as a couple of sets of instructions on becoming an Illinois WorkNet partner and how to access the NOCD and become a proctoring site. So I'm going to increase my screen so that you can see it. And one other item, you can go ahead and enter your information into the chat pod. Just remember that the webinar is recorded, so if you didn't want like your email or phone number in there, then please don't go ahead and don't put that in there. Also, if I'm going to be doing a demo in a little while, and if you would like to have a larger view of the screen, you can click on the icon that has the 4 arrows pointing out to each corner, and that will enlarge what we call these are called pods. And if you select it again, it will restore it to the size that it's currently on the screen. So with that, we'll go ahead and take a look and see what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk, Aaron Hacker is going to talk a little bit about the program information that needs to be entered into Illinois WorkNet. Then we're going to have an overview of the tools. Then we're going to take a look at the application and customer information that will be available whenever this is at the initial release. And then we'll talk about the next steps. So right now, I'll just go ahead and turn it over to Aaron so he can tell you a little bit about the information that we're going to enter in Illinois WorkNet.
Thank you, Natasha, and good afternoon to our CYEP providers. I am grateful that you're able to attend our conference this afternoon via the webinar here, and we hope to be able to do this fairly frequently, so hopefully this works out well for our providers. But yes, I'm very glad to be getting off to a good start with the Illinois WorkNet here in FY18. I know that many of our providers here in FY18 were also providers in FY17, and I know in FY17 we had some difficulty with the WorkNet, and it wasn't that the WorkNet wasn't functioning. It was just not, we did not establish a custom portal as we had hoped to for the Community Youth Employment Program. That, for the most part, has been resolved this year, and we are already off to a great start of developing the WorkNet to be able to do the things that we had hoped it would have been able to do last year. So, and Natasha has been great about that so far, and I think it's going to end up working really well. Last year, when we had the WorkNet going here, the information that we were able to get entered was limited, and our ability to pull custom reports was limited. This year, we expect to be able to have all that corrected. So some of the things that we are looking for when it comes to utilization of the WorkNet, we're trying to include as much of the program reporting requirements in the WorkNet as possible. So, for example, the applications for your program. So, for example, when you enroll youth in the Community Youth Employment Program, we're going to have an application that they will need to complete in the Illinois WorkNet. I believe we're going to be able to see that today, see a demonstration of that application, but a lot of that application will then populate other things that we want to have in the CYEP reporting requirements. So For example, things like, when it comes to putting together a services training and education plan for our youth, that will be populated from our application when it comes to the youth's job placement. So when you take these youth and you put them in a job, we're going to record that job placement in the Illinois workNet. When you complete standardized assessments of your youth, some of those assessments like the NOCTI or the career cluster inventory or the employment 101 pre and post assessments, those things should just automatically incorporate into the youth's file. However, there may be other standardized assessments that you are completing with youth that you could also go ahead and manually enter into the Illinois workNet. Let me see here. There are handful of things like that. So some of the supportive services that you've got for the youth when it comes to eligibility determinations, and we're trying to decide, if the youth is actually eligible for the Illinois workNet, those determinations can be made and recorded in the Illinois workNet. So many of the things that that we are asking you to do, we are going to ask you to document through the Illinois workNet, and a number of the trainings and things like that also are going to be documented through the Illinois workNet. So it is really going to be the central hub for a lot of the youth employment work that we're going to be doing. Natasha?
Okay, great, thanks. Yep, so Erin touched on a few tools that we have, and then we'll also have a document upload. So some of the things that, you could also include if you have training would be, things such as a syllabus or your worksite agreements or copies of credentials. Those are additional items that would really be helpful to have, uploaded in workNet and all in one place. And so, like when I was talking to Erin previously, we were talking about, really being able to have all that information in one place so that just anytime anybody asks about how the program or for a specific location, it's easy to tell them exactly what's going on. We just want to be able to, give you the ability, or give you the ability to kind of show off and showcase your program and what you have to offer by, offering that ability to have that transparency there. When we talk about the uploads, the one thing I just want to make sure is, Erin did mention about eligibility. And so while we do have the capability to allow you to upload documents, we just want to make sure that, just remind everyone, just be mindful of any of the personal identifiable information, or, make sure we don't have anything with a full Social Security number. I'm sure everyone's very aware of that, but I always like to just remind everybody. Okay. So there are some people that have been on some of our other projects, so this will seem very familiar to you. There are some people that are very new to Illinois workNet, so this may seem very overwhelming to you, but never fear. We will walk you through each of these processes. We will have instructions available to you. We will have, I'd like to have weekly technical assistance webinars available to you, so we can cover our updates that we're making to the system, because we want to be able to introduce you to each of these pieces and parts, give you a preview of what they are, give you an idea of what to expect, and then whenever those are available for release, then we will present those in those technical assistance webinars, give you the opportunity to ask questions, and then we'll provide instructions and so forth. So some of the components that we are going to have, we have the public website outreach that will be available on Illinois workNet. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but that's kind of where you could direct people to those areas if they have any questions. We have the online application, which we're going to demonstrate today. And then we have eligibility. We'll have information about eligibility and a way to record your enrollment status. We have a way for you to enter in assessment results, and some of those assessment results will automatically be populated if they're available through Illinois workNet. But then you also have the ability to add additional assessments. We'll give you the ability to create an ISTEP, and an ISTEP is an individualized services training and employment plan. So there you'll be able to document any services and credentials. We'll also have the worksite placement, so you can identify those specific worksite placements, and that'll be used for helping with tracking and providing notifications as well. And then we have a progress page, which is kind of like a summary of the information to help you, quickly at a glance see the progress of each individual. And then we also have access to other workNet tools, such as the resume builder, worksite evaluation, we'll have case notes, reports. So we have lots of tools that are available. Some of the things that we use are dashboards, and so we're not going to go into those today, but these dashboards to give you an overall quick view at a glance status of where everybody is, and also to identify any areas that are kind of like red flags or places that have need immediate attention. We'll also have reports, and we'll use notifications that help you and assist you with monitoring the progress of individuals and overall for your program. And then we also have a case note tool that can be used to send messages at the same time that you create case notes. That's a brief overview of some of the tools that we have. I mentioned before that we'll have a public website. We still need to determine exactly what's going to be in that website or on those web pages, but we'll have a short URL so you can incorporate that into any outreach documentation that you would like, or it could be used with any type of outreach, whether it's social media or emails or mailings, whatever you choose to use. And the nice thing about having these public pages is you can package the information all together so there's a consistent message, across the state. So that covers, an overview of the program, eligibility, given the ability to access the application, benefits. We'd like to be able to provide some information to help you with, sharing the benefits for your employer partners. And then we can also provide an overview so your customers have a better understanding of the different tools that are also available to them. And of course, we always want to collect success stories, so that could be incorporated as well. One of the things that we're going to look at today is the application. And this is on test, so it still needs to go through testing. So I would anticipate that the application could be released on Monday. And what we would do initially, since we don't have the public web pages, we could give you instructions with a link to the application. And the application is used to collect initial assessment information, such as their education history, employment history, any barriers to employment. And it's also used to put the customer into Illinois workNet in the right group or the right bucket. So we make sure that your customers go to you and not to your neighboring provider. Now,
Natasha, can I point out real quick too? This is why we had Rebecca Fernandez, who is our intern for DHS and has been working with the CYEP, to contact all of the providers too. And we mentioned that we want to make sure that we've got the right site address for you, so that wherever you're going to be delivering CYEP services, or wherever you want to direct CYEP participants, potential participants, that's what we reached out to you to get. So I think we got fairly accurate information from everyone, but if for some reason you've ended up giving us your main headquarters, but you want youth to be directed somewhere else or something, that's what we were looking for. So if you think that we may have collected the wrong information from you, please let us know.
Okay, good point. Thanks. Okay, let me think. What was that? Okay, and so it includes okay, so let me real quick. One of the things that I want to point out to you is that some of you may have customers that already have Illinois WorkNet accounts, and that is perfectly fine. What we would want them to do is whenever they complete the application is to use the existing, their existing Illinois WorkNet account in order, whenever they complete the application. You know, please, we definitely don't want them to set up a new account. We want them to use their existing accounts. The goal is to always have like one account per person. Okay, so it includes their contact information, employment goals, demographic information, so you can read those. We'll take a look at that in a moment. Once they complete the application, then it will put their information into what we call this the CYEP partner tools. And so whenever you go into your partner tools, then you'll see a list of your customers and you can see their profile. And initially you'll be able to see their application, assessments, and optimal resume. And hopefully, even with our new release date on Monday, we could even have the case notes in there as well. Okay, good question. What happens if they no longer remember their current login? Well, first of all, is how quickly will you be able to contact them to reset their password? Okay, so there's two things. If they already have their Illinois WorkNet account, number one, we would encourage them to recover their password. So hopefully they remember that they have an email account associated with it, and hopefully they can get into their email account. If not, we have the date of birth and secret password, and if that just doesn't work, then they can always contact info@Illinois WorkNet, and we can work with them to reset the password. The other thing is, if you have access to them because they were in a previous group of yours, then you can reset their password for them using the Customer Support Center customer groups. Okay. Can we print out the application ISTEP and other documents created? Yes, you will be able to do that.
I want to clarify, yes, we can print those things out. However, what I really would not prefer would be that I don't want people to say, well, I'm going to print out a blank application and use that and fill that out and then call that my record. I would prefer, I want it filled out in the Illinois WorkNet. If you want to use that as a template so that you know you've got the information handy, or after you have already entered it into the WorkNet and you want to print out that application for an individual participant file, that would be acceptable. But I don't want to use the printouts as a workaround to avoid having to put things in the Illinois WorkNet.
Yeah, correct. Yes, exactly. So I guess when I said yes, as I was meaning you could print out the documents that you've already completed, like the application's already been completed and submitted.
Right, and I wouldn't have any problem with that.
Yeah, and because if you don't complete the application online, they're simply not going to be counted because they will not be in the Illinois WorkNet system. That's the only way you can get them into your CYEP tools. Okay, I see we have a person, several people typing. Okay, am I understanding each agency conducting will have access to their own? Yes, that is correct. You will. Okay. Okay, so we have another person typing, but so some of the tools that I mentioned before, you'll have your profile, you'll have the progress page, ISTEP, services, case notes, assessments, optional resume. So you'll be able to access the different tools within your partner account. Okay. When entering documentation, should it be with an agency login or an individual account? Well, if you are entering information, there shouldn't be an agency login. Let's put it that way. Each workforce partner should have their own Illinois WorkNet account.
And to clarify that too, when people have an individual Illinois WorkNet account, you can link those individuals, like the individual staff members of an agency, you can link them to that agency's partner account, correct?
Actually, what we would do is change their account from an individual account to a partner account.
Got it.
So all your information still stays the same with your individual account. You don't lose your information. We just convert it to a partner account, and if you ever leave that organization or you're not a partner anymore, we'll convert you back to an individual account. Okay, so will customers be required to accept an invitation? Okay, no. We'll be able to, okay. So will customers be required to accept an invitation to be able to review their assessment info like before, or can we access when they choose our organization in the application? When they complete the application, they will choose your organization, and then they will automatically go into they'll automatically be visible to you. So the very first step of completing the application is agreeing to the terms of use, which basically gives you the ability to view their information. Okay, if you already have a partner account, you don't have to do anything to have access, correct? That is correct. If you already have a partner account and we have your name, then we will go ahead and give you access to your organization. Okay, very good questions. I'm so excited that you guys are asking them.
And we did provide Natasha with a list of all of the CYEP provider contacts that were received from your contact information forms that you filled out with your grant applications. And so again, if you think somebody needs to have access and be associated with your organization that doesn't, or you need to update contact information, definitely just let me know, and I can make sure that we get that corrected with Natasha.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so on your screen now, you should see my screen, which says Community Youth Employment Programs, CYEP. I need to put up here Partner Guide. I'll add that text up there. This is in Illinois WorkNet, and for right now, at least as of today, I have this short URL in your PowerPoint, and so it is available out on production. But we will be updating it in the very, very near future to include, when the tools are released, we'll go ahead and put that link right here. So this is one way that you can access those partner tools. We'll put together our full list of resources and instructions. We'll have, like, for example, the webinar that we're doing right now will be recorded and posted on this page, as well as in this other archived webinar section. We can put together a frequently asked questions page and then an updates page. So that'll help with letting you know when updates are made to the site. So to start out with, I have here the information about becoming a partner. So if you're not already a partner, maybe you have an individual account that needs to be converted to a partner account. You can take a look at that. We also have some information about becoming a NOCTI site. So I have some information for your customers, a customer guide as well as a partner guide, and then requesting access to the partner tools. So we'll get that out to you, but we'll have instructions for, accessing the application, and then if any instructions to direct your customers to the application, at least until we have those public pages out there and available. And then I put some resources on here, the tools and web pages that we already have that talk about the Illinois WorkNet assessment, the resume guide, builder guide, and then Employment 101 information. And then I just have some placeholders here for some other documents. So these pages will change quite a bit as we continue to build the tools. And I just want to make sure that you know this is your go-to place that should have all your information and all your resources available in one place. And you don't even have to log in to access these resources. This is a public page. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example. Hopefully, I had this up a little while ago on test. So I have our test URL. And so, for example, I can say the very first thing that would ask me is, do I have an LMI workNet account? And I could say no. It's been sitting for a while, so let's see if hopefully it lets me go right into it. Okay, again, this is on test, so we'll just go ahead and say, we'll put the date of birth. So the date of birth has to be within the age range of the for the program. Otherwise, it will not allow them to complete the application. So if they run into a problem that says, you're not eligible, then, just double check to make sure they didn't enter in the wrong date of birth. Let me type this in. Sorry, bear with me real quick while I put this information in. I just want to be able to show you an application, what it looks like. Okay, I'm almost done. Almost there. Make sure I type it in right. Okay, then I accept the term. So if they already have an LMI workNet account, then obviously we want them to go ahead and use their LMI workNet account. If they don't, then they will be prompted to create an LMI workNet account and then log into that account. So when they get to this page, this is the pre-screening section. There'll be, we have this kind of agreement to the terms of use so that they can say I have read to the terms of use, and I can start the application. We do have a couple of areas. Like I said, this was just pushed out the, really? Come now. All right. Well, never fear. Again, this is on test, so sometimes you, okay. Well, anyway, it went through. Yay. Okay. So it's going to pull in the information that we already have in their LMI workNet account. So again, if they already have an LMI workNet account, it's going to pull in the date of birth that was already in there. If it's not correct for any reason, they can change it in the application. They have the eligibility criteria, so they have to live in Illinois. Are they registered to work in the U.S.? We can say yes. Are you currently in school? If we say yes, it gives you in-school follow-up questions. If they say no, then it has another follow-up question. Do you have a high school diploma or equivalent? You say yes, and say no. And if you say no, would you be willing to go back to school? Yes. Okay. Then we have a listing of barriers. And once they select, they can select all that apply, then they can save and go to the next page. If they don't meet the eligibility criteria, then they'll receive a message that says, sorry, but you're not currently eligible for this program. So then the next thing is they will select a provider. Let me go ahead and do this one. We don't have the addresses in here right now. So right now on my screen, let me zoom in a little bit here. Then you'll see that they're listed in alphabetical order. But once we have those addresses listed here, it'll put the address that's available. That's what's in the system. And then it's going to take a look at the zip code that they have entered into the application, and it will, with their account, and then it will populate this list in order of what the closest location is based on that zip code.
Which, by the way, is why it's so important that we get your accurate kind of site delivery information so that we can direct people to the program that's going to work for them.
And so then we asked them a few questions, and this was meant to help with placing them with their work site. You can see, if they want full-time, part-time, how they're able to travel, when are they able to work, and then talking about like their goals. So where do they want to be in a year? Complete school. Maybe here's full-time job. Whatever their short-term and long-term goals are. Then we have some other questions. So you can get an idea of like what have they done so far to get an idea of, have they done any research, or did they just, decide out of the blue that they want to be a forklift driver? Who knows? So you can, they can go ahead and enter those, and then they can enter in, what did they see as their work-related skills and strengths, but I don't know. And then they even go to the next page, and then we let them know that we're going to ask them a few questions, and it's not to say that, they can't get certain jobs necessarily, but it's to help better align them with a work environment for them. So with a career pathway work environment. So the question, what's the heaviest load that you can lift in the workplace? 55 pounds, 50 pounds. So we try to add other information here, like to help them know how much that weight would be. 50 pounds is approximately the weight of a bale of hay. 40 pounds is 5 gallons of water. 25 pounds, an average 2-year-old, or less than 25 pounds. How much time could you stand upright? How much time could you sit? Can you pass the drug test? The way we kind of get out of this, allow them kind of like the prefer not to answer method to this question is, I'm not interested in careers that require a drug test. And describe your eyesight. Can you see with or without, with or without glasses or contacts? Okay. Then the next one is a driver's license. So do you have a driver's license? Yes, no. My license is temporarily suspended. So we tell them, some employers complete a background check, and we just want to make sure that we're not putting you in a place where, we don't want to set them up for disappointment. If we know, that they have some of these background situations that might be a little touchy or, might be showstoppers, then, we want them to go ahead and identify those. They can, again, say that I'm not interested in careers that require a background check. Again, that's the other kind of way out for saying prefer not to answer.
And hey, I want to be clear on this too as we're going through this, that we're not necessarily using these questions as screening questions to determine who can and cannot participate in CYEP. These questions are there to give providers information. The whole point of CYEP is to work with people who are sometimes difficult to place in employment, that they have barriers to employment. And so what we're trying to do is just to help our providers know about those barriers up front so they can know, what they're going to need to do and how they're going to be able to best help this youth find employment. So we don't want you to look at some of these things and say, oh man, this person is going to be difficult to place in employment, so I don't want to have that person in my program. That is not the purpose of the questions.
Correct. Good point. So that's kind of like the pre-screening. And if we want to call this something different than pre-screening, because if it kind of implies that, then we can definitely change that wording. Maybe just put it as getting started, something like that, or I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe,
I think that may be a good idea. Something like that. It's just, again, to try to collect as much information from our applicants up front as possible so that we can hear you, we can have available to you as much information up front.
Okay. And then I do see we have a few questions coming up here, but I want to just quickly go through this application, and then we'll dive into some of those questions. So with the application, we collect contact information. We do allow them to put in their Social Security number, but we don't require it. We collect their address information. And their phone. And it's something I just thought of here. I'm not sure with this population if some of them don't have phones. If we needed to have a button here that said, I don't have a phone, we can add that. So just let me know if that's something that we need to add in the future. We save and go to the next page. If they have an alternate phone, you can add that, but it's not required. If you start to put in the phone number for the alternate phone, then it would require you to say, is it mobile or not, home phone, work phone. Okay, so the next area is the more demographic information. So we have the male, female, prefer not to answer, again, your date of birth, military status, marital status, are they authorized to work? You can see we've already answered some of these, so it's just pre-populated with whatever the response was, and then the ethnicity. Then I can select my highest grade of highest level of education. If I had any other certificates or credentials, I could enter them in. But if I don't enter anything here, then these aren't required. It's only required if you start to enter in the information. So I could put certificate, and I could say it was earned on that day, and it was another, I'll just put occupational skills license. And I could save it and add that information. So I can add as many, if I'm a customer, I can add as many as I want or need. The question here is, have you ever had a job? If they say yes, then it'll ask, it'll allow them to pick, what's your employment status and all your employer information. If it's currently your employer, then it won't require the end date. If it isn't your current employer, it'll ask for the end date and the reason why you're leaving. If you have never had a job, it's going to automatically default your employment status to not in the labor force, and you won't be able to enter your employment history. And then we want to know, are they working with any other service providers? They could say, working with whoever's listed here. And then also, how did you hear about the CYEP program or Online workNet? So you can put some information in there, and then save and go to the next page. And this is an overview. So before they actually submit their information, they can review their information. That's the certificate information that I added. If I had added employers, the same type of look and feel would be listed here. That would include my employer information. If I look at this, I'm like, oops, I selected the wrong thing here. And I can save and return, and I go back to my overview. Okay. So once I do that, I can submit my application, and it lets me know that once I submit this, then I can't make any changes to it. Okay. So then what we'll do is have that set up so that it sends the customer notification that their application was successfully submitted, and we can put some instructions in there as far as next steps.
Who,
And
who would
then,
that send to that they had correctly submitted their application, Natasha?
well, we always send a notification to the customer, but then we had talked about having a notification sent, excuse me, to the providers to let them know that an application was submitted. But what we typically do is have a summary of notifications. So
I just want to make sure I understood correctly that the immediately the participant will know that he or she has submitted an application and it's gotten in, but then also that in the future there'll be notifications, maybe in a batch process for the providers.
Right. So if you have, if you're doing it in an orientation, you have 30 people, you're not going to get 30 emails that say, they've completed their application. Instead, you would get a summary email that said, 30 people have completed their applications. So you could go in there and update, and review the information and move forward. Okay, so then let me just go ahead and I'm going to refresh my page here. So now you can see that these are the two customers that have been entered into, have completed and submitted their application. So I can look at the application that I just submitted, or that was just submitted by Rob, and I can review the information. As the partner, I can edit the information. So, as you're going through and you're talking to this person, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I see that you have a car, you're able to drive. And then, or if I look at it like, oh, well, you said driving, but, is somebody going to take you there? Because I saw that your license was suspended. Like, oh, well, I forgot about my license was suspended, so let me just go ahead and take that off of there because really driving's not an option for you. So they can go in and update that application. We will be adding, some more pages in here, like I mentioned, like the progress page, services page, ISTEP, those type of things. But this is what you'll have immediate access to. So you'll be able to see their application. If you have people that have forgotten their password, even though they may have just created in their application, you can reset their password. You can look at the assessment. So if you have some people who have already, maybe they've been in some other LMI WorkNet programs or programs that have used LMI WorkNet, I should say, or they, maybe they just did it on their own, you would be able to access the information that's been saved in their account previously. So if they had any skills and interests using the CIS skill and interest inventories, then that link would be right there. So it would pass you through so you could view those results. If they have a disability benefits estimator, employment 101, you'd be able to see their pre-post assessment and link to their guide. If they had any NOCI results, then you would be able to see those results. Observational evaluation, same thing. You can add an observational evaluation or view previous evaluations. Same thing with the worksite evaluation. These are all of the assessments that are available through Illinois WorkNet. So what we have recently added is the ability for you to add assessments that are not available through Illinois WorkNet. So let's say that you had a basic skills assessment. You could say, maybe it's like TABE. You can enter in those results, and then, I'm not sure what what it looks like for the real results here, but we'll just go ahead and put that in there. Say okay. Come on. And then you'll be able to see those. So, if some of you are using any other type of assessments, I know like some of the other big ones that people use would be maybe the Casey Life Skills Assessment or like work keys or, anything like that, you can enter those into Illinois WorkNet. And we really encourage you to enter in all your different types of assessments, because we want to really learn more about the different types of assessments and how they're being used out in the field. So this will help develop and build a library of assessments that also can be used as best practices and shared within the whole across Illinois WorkNet partners.
This is one of those things that when it comes to the assessments, that it may not be something that's delivered through the Illinois WorkNet, but it's one of those things that as much as possible we want to try to store that information and capture that in the Illinois WorkNet. And so it's not just if you deliver the assessment and it's not an Illinois WorkNet assessment, and you want to input the results of the assessment in the Illinois WorkNet, that's great. But even if you have an assessment that you're using that you don't see as an option in the Illinois WorkNet, if you can let us know, we can potentially build it in as an option in the Illinois WorkNet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then the other area is optimal resume, and I just created this person. It is in test. So, but we do have quite a few tools. Optimal Resume is really a pretty nifty tool. It has a resume builder, portfolio builder, cover letter builder, web page builder, interview tools where they can, record themselves responding to interview questions, video resume builder. So there's lots of different tools that you can use, and not to say that you should use all of them with all of your customers, but you could, I guess. And they also have like an assessment inventory. It's pretty neat too. But any of your past, if you have customers that have been using WorkNet for a while, and maybe they've already had done some of the optimal resume, then you would be able to see any of the saved results for that person as far as like the resume, portfolio, cover letter. You get a read-only view, but again, it gives you visibility to see what they have saved. And you can also, if you say, you could send them a message and say, hey, I looked at your such and such resume, great job. The only thing, you might want to consider updating this section or something like that, or or you can, send them a message and say, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, you can give them feedback on their optimal resume if you wanted to do so, because you would have access to view those results. So let's see here. So are there questions, Erin, that I need to answer? Looks like you've been providing feedback, so that's fabulous.
Yes, I'm trying to keep up as they come in. I wanted to try to answer Yancey's question. I know, Natasha, you and I had discussed this about, if a youth had previously completed the Employment 101 pre and post assessment or some of the other assessments, would we want youth then, again, if they were enrolled this year, to complete those assessments? And we had talked about just making sure that if they had previously completed those, then we would consider that particular performance measure complete. Things like the NOCTI, we hadn't previously required that, so we wouldn't expect that most youth had completed that. And one of the performance measures with the NOCTI is for this year is, did they did they complete a career readiness certificate? And if they have previously taken the NOCTI but they didn't earn the career readiness certificate, they could take it again. That there wasn't a limit on the number of times that they could take that exam. And I believe we talked about like Employment 101, that is there a limit to the number of times you could take the post-assessment? I was thinking that the pre-assessment, could only be completed once, but I couldn't remember with the post-assessment.
The post-assessment is unlimited, and it's going to save your highest score.
Okay, so
it's not going to keep a long record of how
Sure. How many times you've completed the post-assessment? It's just going to give you one post-assessment outcome. And so if you had youth who completed the pre- and post-assessment in the past, but perhaps they didn't do as well on the post-assessment, didn't show a lot of improvement in work readiness skills, that it might be something that they would want to take again. We also discussed, the goal is kind of to show improvement in work readiness skills on the Employment 101 post-assessment. And so if a youth scores really well well on the post-assessment, and I think we talked about something like an 80% or something like that, that we would not count that particular score as one to show improvement because they had already shown as proficient, but we're still working out those details.
Yeah, and we'll have more webinars again, just to kind of go through and really dive deep into those.
Sure.
That level of detail. Okay, were there any other questions? Okay.
Just to clarify too, though, again, if youth had previously had an Illinois workNet account and had previously completed some of these things, and now we're going to associate them with CYEP and kind of link all that together, that their previous work in the Illinois workNet would be would be incorporated into the new CYEP system, correct?
Okay, one more time. I was reading that back here. I was reading the last question you had.
So if if youth had previously completed Illinois workNet information, like they logged in and completed the Employment 101 pre and post assessment, that information when their account, when they complete an actual CYEP application, if they already had a previous Illinois workNet account, any of the information that was associated with their previous Illinois workNet account would be incorporated into, and their results would be incorporated into their new system here. Yes,
it will. Everything because we store all the information with the customer's account. The only thing that they do will be brought over. Now, and what I was reading your statement about, it's my understanding that only your agency would be able to see the CYEP application, and you're correct. That's why we have them select the organization, because then they are associated with your customer support center group, and other CYEP locations can't see it unless, let's say, what is it? Is it CAPS, I think, that has maybe a couple different locations? You could be with those multiple locations. In that case, you would see information. But
that would still be within the same agency, but
yeah. So whatever
sites.
whatever group that you've been given access to, you would be able to see those customers. I'm just looking back through some of these other questions. Was there anything else that...
Under Homework Hangout Club had a suggestion about the application, maybe asking a question about if they have a social media account.
Oh, yeah, I mean...
Something I hadn't considered. Not a bad question to ask.
Right.
And again, with the application, the idea is to try to collect as much useful information as we can for you, for the provider, up front. There will be more that you will have to dig into. This application is a starting point, and there will be more that you will have to, talk through with the youth, and more information will be ended up being input into the system. But this, this is a pretty comprehensive application to collect quite a bit of that information, so that you've got it as a great foundation for starting some of those conversations with the youth.
Yep, that's a good point. Yeah, and because they said usually they keep their social media account even if you don't have a number to reach them. So that's a good point, a way to keep in touch.
I've experienced that frequently as well.
Okay. I see we have another person typing, so we'll let you. Okay. Okay. You will be able to start the application process, but the projected release date is Monday. We still need to do some testing on that application.
What you're seeing right now is a demonstration of what exists, and it's very, very close to being live. But yes, you mentioned that the program start date is 11/1, and and that's true. We do want you to start serving participants, hopefully this month, and start enrolling participants. The actual tool for actually enrolling them, enrollment will be through the Illinois workNet, and that actual tool should go live, assuming that the tests go as scheduled, should go live Monday.
Yes, So, okay. Let's see, we have another, is there an income guideline? Okay.
An income guideline is in, referring to eligibility. I believe that we've got, and I'd have to look exactly at our eligibility. I wanted to say that previously we used 185% of the federal poverty level, and I would have to look exactly to see. I don't remember if we put that as an eligibility requirement or not, but that would be one potential eligibility requirement. There are a number of different eligibility requirements that could allow a youth an income. Yeah, okay, I'm looking at it right now. Thank you. Is in our notice of funding opportunity in our program guidelines, we've got family income does not exceed 185% of the federal poverty level. However, that is one way that a youth could be eligible, but let's say the youth's family income does exceed 185% of the federal poverty level, but the youth meets a different eligibility criteria. The youth could still be eligible. So, for example, if the youth is at risk of education failure or has dropped out of school or, has been incarcerated, or so we've got at risk of involvement or further involvement in the criminal or juvenile justice system, any of those things. So just because the youth their income may exceed that income guideline doesn't necessarily mean that the youth would not be eligible. It just means the youth would not be eligible under that criteria. And there was a question, Natasha, about will we receive a link to the enrollment tool, and Yep, looks like.
Yep,
So.
and they'll be available in the partner guide. So.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. So, for next steps, we have the partner guide, which is, let me just sharing up here. I can get this bigger here. The partner guide is out there. It's available. It will be updated. And one of the questions was, will we receive a link? Well, we'll send out a notice or an information to let you know that it's available. But the link will be available on this page, and then I'll also have instructions to help you with knowing how to access the tools, and we'll have written instructions for you as well. Okay, so the next step is, if you don't already have an Illinois WorkNet partner account, then we need to get you access to those partner tools. So go ahead and use the information, the link on how to become a partner. And if you already have an Illinois WorkNet account, or if you're already a partner, and you need to have access to those tools, and please go ahead and submit your information to info@illinoisworknet.com, and we can go ahead and we'll run it, we'll have to verify everything, so we'll run it past Erin just to make sure that that's you can have access, and then we'll go ahead and give you access to those tools. Then you can also look at the taking the instructions that are in the lower left. They're also available in the partner guide. There's information there on how to become a NOCTI site. And so if you need any assistance with that, then you can contact us as well. Let me do the best way. Can't type and talk at the same time. The best way, if you have any questions, is to always send a message to info@illinoisworknet.com, because some of your questions may be, standard questions that we get all the time, and we have people that can, provide, immediate results to your need. And if they don't know, that email is always monitored, and so they'll send it to the appropriate person. So if I'm out of the office, they'll make sure they send it to Chelsea or somebody else that can help you. So I do encourage you to send your request to info@illinoisworknet.com. The other thing that you can do is you can prepare to have your customers complete the online application. So if you know that you're going to have an orientation and you have, let's say, 10, 15 people at your location, go ahead and you can reserve a computer lab, or prepare people to let them know that they'll need to have certain types of information, or start thinking about your employment history, that type of thing, where they can be prepared to complete the application. And then I would like to, if possible, have our weekly CYEP TA webinars on Wednesday from 1:30 to 2:30. If that's not going to work out, then we can go ahead and select a different date, but we can start out with those weekly webinars, and they will be recorded and posted in the CYEP partner guide. So if you can't attend those, you can always view those online as well. So any other questions, or Aaron, any last final comments?
No, I mean, I think I'm good. I will let you know if you really have conflicts with Wednesdays at that particular time. Maybe let me know. Obviously, it's always difficult to find a time that's convenient for everyone, but we're going to try to do one that is convenient for most people, and this is what we're going to go with here at first. And again, the great thing about the webinars being recorded is if you or if your staff have got to miss them, you can catch up. I know it's not as fun to view a recorded webinar because you can ask questions or participate, and your participation is not logged there as being there, but it's still convenient to be able to get in and review those webinars later. And it looks like Yancy was asking, when do the weekly webinars start? Well, they start today. So this is the first weekly webinar. So look for one next Wednesday. It would be the Wednesday before the Thanksgiving holiday would be next week, and then we'll just continue. The weekly webinars, Natasha and I have discussed. They probably won't need to be weekly forever, but as we get started, there are a number of topics that we want to try to cover and clarify in some of the webinars. Some of them will be CYEP related, and some of them will be workNet related, and most of the time probably both, so that they may be just general policy questions that you might have that we'll discuss during a webinar. Otherwise, they may be specifically related to technical issues with CYEP. But and there are advantages and disadvantages to kind of developing it as we go. I've heard the phrase used before. We're engineering the airplane as we're flying it, and we're doing some of that. We are just kind of getting started with the Illinois workNet. We've been working on it for the last month or so. So I don't want you to think just this week we've been working on it, but we have been working on it basically since we realized that we were going to be offering a CYEP program again for FY18. So throughout October and November here, we've been trying to be on top of it. So we'll try to continue to get this thing going, and the advantage here of designing it as we go is that as we need to be flexible, or we figure things that you want to have or that we need to have in the system, we can continue to incorporate those things. So I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's going to be great. Yancey's asking too, Natasha, about if we should just have providers follow the same link, and we'll definitely try to make sure we send you calendar invites, and that way you've got them handy. But I believe the Adobe Connect link will be the same, correct?
Yeah, the link and the phone number will be the same. In some very rare situation, we might have to change the phone number if there's a conflict, but for the most part, it should just be the same.
It'll be fairly consistent, and if it's not, we will try to update you.
Yeah, we'll try to remember to make a standard practice to send out reminders and all that kind of good stuff.
We have a list of topics that we're going to be going over with new tools and things that we develop, but if you have things that you want to discuss on the webinars in the future, definitely let me know too. If you think there's a topic that would be especially handy for everyone, we'll try to incorporate those training topics in as we go. All right?
All right, thank you. And if you haven't checked in, go ahead and do so. We want to make sure that we know you're here. So,
Absolutely.
all right.
Probably also because if I don't see from or see that people are attending or I don't hear from you that you've managed to catch it, I might reach out to you and just ask that, if you haven't had staff attend, I'll remind you that these are going on because I think these are going to be pretty valuable as we get started. You may have worked with the workNet a lot in the past, but there will be some unique things about the CYEP system for this go-around, and so I do think it'd be a valuable use of your time to be present. All right?
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great
Natasha,
day.
thank you. Good afternoon.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye.